Chapter 22. The Dogs of War. Damage. No one else but you. There were no other words to describe what Devin was seeing except one. Chaos. No sooner had they launched their ships, the enemy fighters sprung their attack, seemingly from out of nowhere. The sporadic sight was an obstacle course of ostentatious proportions. It left little room to manoeuvre in. It was turning into a wild game of the enemy ships shooting at him while nearly colliding with any unsuspecting craft. With the quick flick of the wrist, Devin manoeuvred his fighter behind two enemies. He dispatched one with a short burst of fire. The other one veered off, dodging Devin's attack before falling right into the barrage of fire from Braum's fighter. The green ship exploded instantly, as the fireball instantly dissipated in the darkness of space.
"That'll teach those brainless apes to mess with Alterra," shouted Braum.
I think Kaya said they were reptilian," reminded Devin.
"Doesn't matter," Braum retorted, as he took out two more fighters.
Devin shook his head, as he knew better than to argue. More fighters were approaching from the left side. Devin listened to the radio chatter, trying to keep track of everything that was going on around him. The flight simulator was nothing compared to flying in real space. He had more freedom here. It was as if he were a part of something larger than before, a spectacle of pure exhilaration. The enemy was not near as tough as they were on the simulator, but then again, he did not have the support of his comrades at the time either. Another fighter fell to Devin's side. 3 Altarian pilots released their fire upon the lone, helpless ship. One by one, the enemy ships fell to the ferocious attack of Alterra's finest. Off in the distance, the enemy cruisers stood poised, as if to attack at any moment. A complement of support ships surrounded them, giving their numbers an intimidating look. Yet they stayed away from the initial point of battle, waiting for the fighter fight to play itself out before ensuing with their next objective. "What are we going to do about those?" asked Devin. Braum brought his fighter alongside Devin's, peering toward the larger ships off in the distance.
"If it were up to me," he replied, "I'd say we give them a fudge bomb up the tailpipe."
"Seems to me like you're the man in charge out here," reminded Devin. "How about we lock and load and bring the party to them?" Braum laughed through the intercom. The sound crackled with distortion, giving Devin an earache.
"I like the way you think, rookie," he told him. "Alpha 1 to end run. We're engaging the enemy fleet. Repeat, we are preparing to engage the cruisers. All wings fall into position." The surge of battle began to race through Devin once again as he took his position along Braum's wing. Alpha 1, this is end run. Do not engage the enemy fleet. The captain has not given you clearance. Alpha 1, do you copy? "You listen here," replied Braum at full volume.
"I am not going to be waiting all day for the captain to think about what's going on here. You just sit there in your cosy little fortified bridge while we take out these lizard men the way I know how. We're going in. Alpha 1 out." Devin looked over at him as he could tell Braum was furious. And without another word, the fighters tightened up their formation, aiming their sights upon the main enemy fleet. Captain Tomler clenched and unclenched his fists. The first run of his magnificent ship, and some egotistical pilot was already disobeying his orders. "Tell him if he doesn't get back here this instant, he'll be reprimanded for his actions," he yelled. "I don't think that'll do any good," said Kaya from her station. Tomler glanced at her, annoyed by her comment. Kaya ignored him and focused on the scene out in space. Her heart was racing, but for some strange reason, she felt good about what was going on. She was glad those two were getting along. It never occurred to her, Braum and Devin becoming friends. That would have been the least common scenario she would have ever thought of. Yet, there they were, flying side by side. A tinge came to her face. "If they leave, then we are defenceless against bomber attacks," Tomler yelled. "What bomber attacks?" Kaya asked.
She turned to the navigator as he was staring wide-eyed at his station's monitor.
"Sir, multiple waves of bombers approaching from the starboard side," he yelled out. 100 millisectors and closing."
Tomler began cursing under his breath. "Our foe isn't as dumb as we think," he finished through gritted teeth. "Recall those fighters. Helm, take evasive maneuvers. And get those damn shields back up." The officers acknowledged his orders. Kaya began to feel her fears envelop her. She ran to the communication station. Grabbing a headset, Kaya pressed the send button. "Brom, bombers are approaching. Get your ass back here," she yelled. There was a small hesitation as she glanced up to see the fighters engaging the enemy ships. "So what?" he replied through the intercom. "You guys shouldn't be worried about a few bombers." Kaya's blood froze with impatience.
"The shields are malfunctioning," she yelled back. "We're defenceless against them."
Braum blew a few curses over the radio as some of the crew members began to blush. "Damn it," finished Braum. "Squad reform. Head back to the ship. Now!" A few enemy ships took heavy damage before the fighters started their withdrawal. Kaya looked up, her breath heavy from the image before her. "Missiles!" cried the helmsman. Kaya grabbed onto the station before her, bracing for the impact. As she did, the bridge flashed with light. The ship rocked from the explosion, shifting toward the port side. "Damage report!" yelled Tomler. The first officer stared at his screen. "Levels 10 through 13 reporting hull damage. Engineering reports a 12% loss in power." Tomler shook his head, his eyes glaring at the scene outside. "How long before our fighters return?" "ETA, 1 minute," replied the communications officer. "Second wave of missiles approaching," yelled the first officer. Another flash appeared. The bridge floor shook as a sharp bolt of electricity shot up through the bridge deck. Kaya ducked behind her station, the bolt missing her head by inches. It arced toward the ceiling, shorting out some of the circuitry before finally dissipating. Kaya choked, fighting to breathe as she lifted her head up from behind the console. A thick layer of smoke enveloped the bridge, making it difficult to assess the damage. "Heron!" she cried, waving the smoke from her face, trying to catch sight of the first officer. Heron was lying face down over his console. The communications officer got up and checked his vital signs. After a few seconds, he looked up at Kaya and shook his head. A small lump began to form in her throat as Kaya turned to face the screen. "Fighters are about to engage the bombers," relayed the navigator. "Captain, auto-defense is still inoperable. Shall we avert course?" There was no response. Kaya glanced over to where the captain was last standing. The smoke dissipated some more, revealing the form of a person upon the ground. Kaya jumped up, her eyes not believing what she was seeing, as a few crew members raced over to assist. Kaya knelt down, scrambling to check his vital signs. She searched, hoping to find something, but she could not feel it. He was dead. Kaya fell back, her hand pressed to her forehead, trying to keep the room from spinning. Her heart was pounding with each passing second as she looked around the damaged bridge with no idea of what to do. Many eyes were now upon her, fearful of what their fate was without a leader. "What do we do now?" asked the communications officer. Kaya's eyes blinked as she turned to all the awaiting faces. They were young, inexperienced gazers, not sure of what was going to happen to them. "I don't know," she whispered. "Who's next in command?" She searched each one, hoping someone would stand up and take charge. No one did. Then, a sudden realization came over her as she began to feel horrified by the terrible notion. "You're the one with the most experience here," replied the helmsman. "As far as any of us are concerned, you're the ranking officer." Kaya rose from the floor, contemplating the situation. She glanced around the bridge as everyone waited for her to say or do something. With an effort from deep inside, Kaya buried her inhibitions as she looked at the young man before her. "What's your name?" The young officer shook as she could see the fearful curiosity in his eyes. "Nar, ma'am," he replied with a shaky voice. Kaya smiled at him, giving those around them an easier sense that everything might turn out all right. "Nam, turn the automated systems to manual," she said. "Make sure all stations are manned." The communications officer nodded. "Yes, ma'am," he replied. Kaya turned her attention to the helmsman. "Duran, right?" The helmsman nodded in compliance, his eyes wide with trepidation. "Turn the ship about. Make sure those bombers are kept between us and those other ships. We don't want them to think we're too easy of a target." Duran acknowledged her. Turning back to the controls, he carried out her orders. Kaya took in a deep breath. She had not done anything like this for a very long time, but it was keeping her mind running, and that's what she needed most. Her attention turned to the ground, cringing at the sight of the captain and first officer. It appeared as if life had yet again taken another unexpected turn for her as she tried to shake off the gloom of the moment. "Have medical come and take the bodies away as soon as possible," she added. Looking up, Kaya stared at the object before her. Daring herself, she reached out to touch the captain's chair. Carefully, and with as much respect and honour as she had felt in a long time, Kaya sat in the chair, taking in a view she had never attained before. The leather armrests were cool to the touch as she looked up at the view screen, assessing the situation at hand. "Let the fighters know what has happened," she ordered Nam. "Tell them where to defend the ship, and keep those bombers away." "Aye, Captain," replied Nam. "Sir, the enemy has taken severe damage," cried one of the crew members. The Raelian captain watched the battle scene in eager anticipation. They were so close to their objective, and yet the humans still showed some sign of defiance. "Good," he thought. "Tell the cruisers to form up. We're going to take the battle to them." The crew carried out his orders as the green ships turned about in space, preparing to mount an offensive against the battered human ship. "I shall have victory by day's end," growled the captain. "So says Dern, captain of the 5th Fleet."